The empty house. The smell of burnt toast clung to the morning air, a familiar aroma in the Baker household. Tom coughed, waving a dish towel at the smoke detector. Almost set it off again, he muttered, scraping the blackened bread into the bin. Morning, Dad. Billy shuffled into the kitchen, hair sticking up at odd angles. He yawned, rubbing sleep from his eyes. Morning, sleepyhead. Toast's a bit crispy. How about cereal? Tom poured a bowl of sugary loops, the vibrant colors a stark contrast to the muted gray of the early morning light filtering through the window. Billy mumbled his thanks and sat at the small, scarred kitchen table. He ate quietly, his gaze fixed on the swirling milk at the bottom of the bowl. Tom watched him, a familiar ache in his chest. Raising a kid alone wasn't easy. Balancing the carpentry business, the bills, and Billy's school was a constant juggling act. He'd never admit it aloud, but sometimes he felt like he was failing. Big math test today, right? Tom asked, trying to sound casual. Billy nodded, his shoulders slumping slightly. Yeah. I don't get fractions. We can go over them tonight, Tom offered, even though he knew his own understanding of fractions was shaky at best. After dinner, the school bus rumbled to a stop outside. Billy grabbed his backpack, a faded blue dinosaur design barely visible beneath layers of grime. Bye, Dad. Have a good one, kiddo. And try not to trip on the stairs this time. Tom winked. The house felt hollow after Billy left. Tom cleared the breakfast dishes, the clatter echoing in the silence. He headed out to his workshop, a converted shed in the backyard. The scent of sawdust and varnish filled the air, a comforting aroma that always calmed his nerves. Today's project was a set of custom bookshelves for Mrs. Henderson, the librarian. She was a sweet lady, always slipped Billy an extra cookie when they visited. He carefully measured a plank of oak, the grain smooth beneath his fingertips. The rhythmic whir of the saw and the satisfying precision of the cuts were a welcome distraction from the worries that gnawed at him. Later that afternoon, the setting sun cast long shadows across the living room floor. Billy sat hunched over his video game console, controller clutched in his hands. Explosions and gunfire filled the room, a cacophony that barely registered in his mind. He was supposed to be fighting aliens, saving the galaxy, but all he felt was bored. And a little lonely. His friends were probably all hanging out at the park, playing basketball or something. He hadn't been invited. Again. He hadn't spoken to anyone at school today either. He paused the game, the sudden silence amplifying the emptiness of the house. He glanced around the room, at the worn sofa, the mismatched curtains, the framed photo of him and his dad at the beach a lifetime ago. It was a good house, a safe house. But it felt empty. He sighed, picking up the controller again. Maybe if he leveled up his character, he'd feel a little less alone. The front door creaked open, and Tom walked in, his face etched with exhaustion. He dropped his toolbox with a thud. Hey, sport. How was school? Billy shrugged, not looking up from the screen. Okay. Tom watched him for a moment, his brow furrowed. He knew that shrug. It meant something was up. But he was too tired to push. Dinner will be ready in an hour, he said, heading towards the kitchen. Billy nodded, his fingers flying across the controller. Another alien exploded in a shower of pixels. The house remained stubbornly, resolutely empty. A knock in the night. The wind howled like a banshee, clawing at the eaves of Tom's small cottage. Rain lashed against the windows, blurring the already dim moonlight. He was just settling down with a mug of lukewarm coffee and the beginning of a well-worn detective novel when a frantic knocking echoed through the house. He frowned, setting the mug down. Who would be out on a night like this? He peered through the peephole, his breath catching in his throat. Two figures stood huddled on the porch, drenched to the bone. One was a woman, her face pale and drawn, clinging to the hand of a little girl. He hesitated. Opening his door to strangers, especially on a night like this, felt risky. He worked hard for what little he had. Taking in someone, even for a night, would be a strain. But the image of the shivering child tugged at him. He couldn't just leave them out there. He unlatched the door, the wind nearly ripping it from his grasp as he pulled it open. Can I help you? He asked, his voice tight. The woman looked up, her eyes red-rimmed and filled with a desperate plea. I'm so sorry to bother you, she stammered, her voice trembling. My name is Sarah, and this is my daughter, Lily. Our car broke down a few miles back. We've been walking for hours. Lily, her small face framed by wet tendrils of hair, gave him a weak smile. Her bright eyes, however, seemed to pierce right through him. Sarah's voice cracked. My husband, he left us. Just left us on the side of the road. We have nowhere else to go. Please, she begged, tears streaming down her face, mingling with the rain. Please, can you just let us stay here for the night? We won't be any trouble. I promise. I'll figure something out in the morning. Tom stared at her, his mind reeling. Abandoned on the side of the road? He swallowed hard, the knot in his stomach tightening. He thought of his own struggles, the constant worry about making ends meet, the loneliness that sometimes crept in. He couldn't imagine being out in this storm, completely alone and vulnerable with a child. He looked from Sarah's tear-streaked face to Lily's wide, trusting eyes. He saw the raw fear and exhaustion in their faces. He knew, deep down, that he couldn't turn them away. Come in, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Get out of the rain. Finding room. It's not much, but it's dry, Tom said, gesturing towards the small room at the end of the hall. Sunlight filtered through a slightly grimy window, painted stripes across the bare wooden floor. A single bed, neatly made with a patchwork quilt, sat against one wall. A small, scarred dresser stood opposite it. Sarah stepped inside, her hand resting on Lily's shoulder. Lily's eyes, wide and luminous, took in every detail. It's perfect, Sarah said, her voice thick with emotion. Thank you, Tom. Really? Tom shuffled his feet, the gratitude making him uncomfortable. The bathroom's just next door. And, dinner's usually around 6. Billy leaned against the hallway wall, arms crossed, observing the newcomers with a critical eye. He hadn't said a word since they'd arrived, only offering a curt nod to Sarah when Tom introduced them. He watched Lily carefully, noticing the way she navigated the unfamiliar space, her movements deliberate and cautious. He wasn't sure about this whole arrangement. It felt like an invasion of their quiet, predictable life. Sarah noticed Billy's scrutiny. We'll try not to be any trouble, she said gently. He mumbled something inaudible and pushed himself off the wall, heading towards the kitchen. Tom gave Sarah an apologetic look and followed. Left alone in the room, Sarah knelt beside Lily, her voice low. What do you think, sweetie? Lily ran her fingers over the quilt, the vibrant colors a stark contrast to the room's otherwise muted tones. It's cozy, Mama. And safe. She looked up, her gaze meeting Sarah's. Like a little nest. Later, Billy sat at the kitchen table, pretending to be engrossed in a comic book. The smell of something baking drifted from the spare room. Sarah, he learned, was a baker. Tom seemed to be avoiding the kitchen, tinkering with his truck outside. A shadow fell across the page. Lily stood beside him, holding out a piece of paper. It was a drawing done in bright crayons. A smiling sun shone down on a field of flowers, and in the middle, 2 figures stood hand in hand. One was tall and lanky, with a shock of brown hair, unmistakably him. The other was smaller, with pigtails and a bright pink dress. Billy stared at the drawing, a knot forming in his stomach. He didn't meet Lily's eyes. Lily didn't say anything, just offered him a small, tentative smile. It was a genuine smile, full of warmth and kindness. She placed the drawing on the table beside him and turned to go. As she walked away, Billy glanced back at the picture. The colors seemed to vibrate on the page. He picked it up, his fingers tracing the outline of the smiling sun. The knot in his stomach didn't disappear, but it loosened, just a little. He carefully folded the drawing and slipped it into his pocket. New routines. The scent of roasting chicken chased away the lingering smell of floor cleaner. Sarah hummed softly, expertly basting the bird with pan juices. She'd found a well-worn cookbook tucked away in a drawer and decided to put it to good use. It felt good, really good, to be useful. To contribute. She glanced over her shoulder, a small smile playing on her lips. At the kitchen table, Lily and Billy were a study in concentration. Lily, with her tongue peeking out from the corner of her mouth, was sketching a vibrant sunflower in her notebook. Billy, initially hesitant, was now enthusiastically shading in the petals with a stubby crayon, his brow furrowed in determination. He'd started with a stick figure family that vaguely resembled The Simpsons, but Lily, with gentle encouragement, had coaxed him into something resembling, well, a sunflower. More yellow here, Lily instructed softly, pointing to a particularly pale spot. Like sunshine. Billy nodded seriously, pressing harder with the crayon. A smudge of yellow appeared on his cheek. He giggled and Lily joined in, her laughter a bright, melodic sound that filled the small kitchen. Sarah stirred the gravy, the rich aroma mingling with the sweetness of Lily and Billy's laughter. This felt like a home. A family. Something she hadn't felt in a long time. A key rattled in the lock. Tom. Sarah's stomach tightened, a nervous flutter she hadn't anticipated. She wiped her hands on her apron, taking a deep breath. The door swung open and Tom stepped inside, his face etched with fatigue. The lines around his eyes seemed deeper, his shoulders slumped. He paused in the doorway, his gaze sweeping over the scene before him. The warm, inviting kitchen, the children engrossed in their artwork, Sarah stirring the gravy, a pot holder in her hand. He blinked. Something smells amazing, he said, his voice a little rough. He hung his coat on the hook, a ghost of a smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. Chicken, Sarah replied, her voice barely a whisper. I hope that's all right. All right? Sarah, it's perfect. He walked further into the kitchen, his eyes lingering on Lily and Billy's drawing. Wow, that's quite a sunflower. Billy, emboldened by Tom's presence, puffed out his chest. Lily helped. Tom ruffled Billy's hair. Well, you both did a great job. He looked at Sarah again, a silent question in his eyes. Dinner's almost ready, she said, turning back to the stove. Just need to set the table. As they sat down to eat, a comfortable silence settled over the room. The clinking of forks against plates, the soft murmur of conversation, the shared smiles, these were the sounds of a family. Tom ate with gusto. The cobblestones of the park path were a torment. Lily's grip tightened on the chair's hand rims, her knuckles bone white as she fought the uneven terrain. Beside her, Tom's brow furrowed, watching the effort contort her features. Each small rise and dip vibrated through the chair, eliciting a sharp intake of breath from Lily. Almost there, Lilypad, he encouraged, his voice amplified in the otherwise silent park. He offered a steadying hand, but she shook her head. I've got it, Tom, she managed, her breathing labored. Just, these unsteady wheels aren't helping. His gaze tracked the chair's erratic journey. He hadn't fully appreciated the path's difficulty or the chair's decrepit state. Lately, his focus had been consumed by simply holding everything together. Later, back in their cramped apartment, while Lily sketched, lost in her world of lines and shading, Tom knelt by her side. The chair, scarred with years of use, bore witness to their story. The tires were bald, the spokes subtly askew. He flicked one of the wheels. It spun unsteadily, emitting a faint, mournful whine that filled the room. This thing's about done, he murmured, more to himself. Retreating to his laptop, a leaden weight settled in his stomach. He'd been postponing the inevitable, a new chair. He'd hoped, against hope, that the old one could endure. He typed pediatric wheelchair into the search bar, and a cascade of options flooded the screen. Clicking through link after link, his spirits plummeted. The prices were staggering. Even rudimentary models represented more than a month's wages. He scrolled through specifications he barely understood, tilt-in-space features, adjustable supports, specialized padding. Every add-on inflated the price by hundreds, sometimes thousands. Leaning back, the screen cast a pale glow on his face. A second-hand one might be within reach, but even those carried a hefty price tag and potential hidden flaws. He thought of Lily, her vibrant spirit confined to that aging, unreliable conveyance. He saw her wrestling with the cobblestones, her smile strained. He started a new spreadsheet, itemizing their expenses, savings, and meager earnings. A fresh line appeared, Lily's wheelchair. The adjacent figure, a dispiriting zero. He would need to push himself harder, find extra work, perhaps even part with some of his few cherished belongings. A familiar tide of helplessness washed over him. How could he possibly manage this? How could he allow Lily to continue struggling? The thought of those rickety wheels pressed down on him like a physical burden. Art for wheels? Billy entered the kitchen, artwork pressed against him like armor. Tom, at the table, wrestled with a mountain of invoices, a deep crease etched between his eyes. The overhead light glared, accentuating the weariness in his face. Dad? Billy's voice, a fragile thread, barely carried. Tom glanced up, a tired smile briefly softening the hard lines. Hey, buddy. What's on your mind? Hesitantly, Billy presented his drawings. A collection of local scenes, the ancient oak in the park, the meandering river, Mrs. Gable's riotous flower garden. Amongst them were portraits of Lily, her vibrant smile captured with surprising fidelity. These are really something, Billy, Tom admitted, genuinely surprised by his son's hidden talent. What prompted this? Billy swallowed, warmth rising in his cheeks. I was wondering if maybe I could sell them? At the market. Tom's brows shot up in surprise. Sell them? What for, son? For Lily's new wheelchair, Billy blurted, the words tumbling out. Her old ones, well, you know. I thought if I could raise some money. Tom gazed at the drawings, then back at his son's hopeful face, a beacon against his usual timidity. Guilt coiled in his stomach. Lost in the daily grind, he hadn't grasped the impact of Lily's broken chair, or the depth of Billy's quiet compassion. That's an incredibly thoughtful idea, Billy, Tom managed, his voice thick. But are you sure? Selling your art? Before Billy could answer, Lily rolled into the kitchen, her face radiant. Art for wheels? Brilliant. You're a genius, Billy. Snatching a drawing of a robin on a branch, she declared, See, Dad? He's got a genuine gift. Turning to Billy, a playful glint in her eyes, she added, but we need to give them some punch. Maybe watercolors? Snazzy frames? The following afternoon, Lily perched on Billy's bed, a vibrant palette of watercolors spread before them like a treasure trove. She guided him through blending hues, creating dimension, and conjuring texture. "Don't be afraid to make mistakes," she encouraged. "Art is about unleashing yourself." Tentative at first, Billy slowly relaxed, his hand gaining confidence with each stroke. Colors danced and merged, transforming his simple sketches into compelling, vibrant pieces. Saturday arrived, the air crisp and the sky a brilliant blue. Despite his worries about missing work, Tom helped Billy assemble a stand at the farmer's market. He cobbled together a sign proclaiming, "Billy's art, help Lily roll." Lily, swathed in a warm blanket, sat beside them, offering her unwavering support and flagging down potential buyers. As the market throbbed with activity, Billy stood behind his table, nerves fluttering in his chest like trapped birds. Would anyone even notice his creations? He glanced at his dad, receiving a reassuring nod. He looked at Lily, her smile a lighthouse of belief. Taking a steadying breath, he waited. Community support. The Saturday sun spilled across the farmer's market, gilding the produce, painting the apples with a warm sheen and kindling the peaches' rosy hue. Tom straightened the display, showcasing Billy's charcoal sketches. Depicting scenes of their valley, the artwork held a simple allure that drew the eye. "You feeling okay about this, Billy?" Tom murmured, the worry etched around his eyes deepening. A nervous flutter tickled his stomach. What if they were ridiculed? Billy, perched on a nearby stool, worried a piece of charcoal between his fingers, a blush rising on his cheeks. "Yeah, Dad. I think so." He stole a glance at Lily, absorbed in sketching in her notebook, the tip of her tongue escaping her lips in concentration. This was for her, for their shared future. A woman, vibrant scarf framing a kind face, paused at the easel. "These are lovely," she remarked, indicating the gnarled oak by the creek. "Did you create these?" Billy nodded, self-consciously shrinking back. "They're delightful. I'll purchase this one." She extracted her wallet, and the $5 bill felt substantial in Billy's palm. Soon others gathered. A weathered farmer selected a rendering of his barn. A young couple chose a sunset vista of the mountains. A little girl, captivated by Lily's art, pointed to a robin, prompting her mother to buy it. The coins and bills accumulated in the jar Tom had provided. Later, Sarah arrived, bearing a basket brimming with golden-crusted loaves, their fragrance a comforting counterpoint to the fruit's sweetness. "Morning, everyone," she called, her voice soft yet genuine. Patrons gravitated towards her, lured by the aroma and her gentle warmth. "These look wonderful, Sarah," a man said, paying for his loaf. Beside Billy's display, Tom saw a small, homemade sign crafted by Lily that morning, "Help Billy get wheels." Beneath it sat a second jar, nearly bare. A woman, tears shimmering in her eyes, placed a $20 bill inside. "God bless you all," she breathed. Then another woman followed suit, and then a man in overalls. Quickly, the jar began to fill, a silent testament to the community's empathy. Tom watched, his chest tight. He noticed Mrs. Henderson, normally so austere, deposit a handful of coins, a rare smile softening her lips. He saw Mr. Peterson, the mechanic, discreetly tuck in a folded bill. He caught Sarah's gaze, and they exchanged a look of shared gratitude and amazement. Lost in her own world, Lily continued to sketch, her brow furrowed in concentration, unaware of the growing crowd near the collection jar. Encouraged by his success, Billy offered her a freshly sharpened charcoal stick. The morning air hummed with goodwill, a low thrum of hope and support. For the first time in what seemed like forever, Tom felt a burden lightening, supplanted by a hesitant but unwavering sense of possibility. Perhaps, just perhaps, they could manage this. A famous discovery. The Saturday market buzzed with an energy that usually lifted Tom's spirits. Today, however, a knot of worry tightened in his stomach as he watched Sarah carefully arrange her loaves of bread. Rent was looming, and the pressure to provide felt heavier than ever. Billy, seated beside his small display of sketches, seemed oblivious to Tom's anxieties. He was meticulously shading a drawing of a robin, his brow furrowed in concentration. Lily, perched on her blanket, was adding splashes of vibrant watercolor to a half-finished portrait of a particularly plump tomato from Sarah's stand. A hush fell over the immediate area. A man, instantly recognizable from magazine covers and television interviews, was approaching Billy's art stand. It was Julian Thorne, the celebrated landscape artist known for his breathtaking canvases and his reclusive nature. Julian, his silver hair swept back from his forehead, peered at Billy's drawings through thick-rimmed glasses. He picked up the robin sketch, holding it to the light. "Remarkable," he murmured, his voice a low rumble. "The detail, the emotion, you have a true gift, young man." Billy flushed crimson, stammering, "Thank you, sir." Julian turned his gaze to Lily, his expression softening. And you, my dear, what masterpieces are you creating? He knelt beside her, his expensive suit momentarily forgotten. Lily, unfazed, proudly displayed her tomato portrait. It's magnificent, Julian exclaimed, genuinely impressed. He looked from Lily to Billy, then back again. I heard whispers, you see. Whispers of a young artist with extraordinary talent and an equally extraordinary muse. Your story is inspiring. He stood, addressing Tom. I believe true talent deserves nurturing. I want to offer Billy a scholarship to my summer workshop in Tuscany. All expenses paid. And he paused, a mischievous glint in his eye. I happen to know someone who specializes in designing custom wheelchairs. State-of-the-art technology, unparalleled comfort. Consider it a gift to the artist who inspires us all. A collective gasp rippled through the nearby stalls. Sarah covered her mouth, tears welling in her eyes. Tom felt a lump in his throat, unable to speak. Billy stared at Julian, his mouth agape. Lily, however, simply smiled, her eyes sparkling. Thank you, she said, her voice clear and strong. That is very kind. Julian smiled back. Kindness is a currency that never depreciates, my dear. And your art, your spirit, they are priceless. He handed Tom a card. Contact my assistant. We'll arrange everything. As Julian Thorne moved on, leaving a ripple of awe in his wake, Tom finally found his voice. Billy, he said, his voice thick with emotion, this is incredible. Billy, still speechless, simply nodded, his eyes shining with a mixture of disbelief and joy. The robin sketch, now suddenly imbued with even greater significance, trembled slightly in his hand. The aroma of baking bread, sweeter than ever, filled the air, a silent testament to the miracle unfolding. A true family. The park throbbed with the buoyant energy of children released from school for the day. Lily, securely nestled in her new wheelchair, beamed, her eyes mirrored the brilliance of the sun sifting through the turning leaves. The chair, a streamlined azure model with intuitive controls, felt less like an implement, more like an extension of her own eager spirit. Sarah gave a gentle nudge, but Lily quickly took the lead, expertly navigating the winding pathways, dodging errant soccer balls and circling around clusters of picnickers. Faster, Mom! Faster! Lily shrieked, her joyous cry echoing through the crisp air. Sarah picked up her pace, jogging to keep up, her own face alight with matching delight. Tom, trailing behind, observed them, a comfortable warmth spreading through him. He noticed the inquisitive tilt of Lily's head as she watched a squirrel's acrobatic ascent, the delicate way she reached out to caress a crimson leaf. The world, which had felt muted and demanding just weeks ago, now exploded with vibrant hues through her revitalized gaze. Later, the kitchen table transformed into a vibrant creative hub. Billy, usually reserved about his artistic endeavors, was sketching alongside Lily, their heads conspiratorially close. Lily, her left hand still gaining strength and precision, bravely attempted a portrait of their dog, Buster. Billy, spurred by her perseverance, conjured a whimsical beast, a dragon adorned with delicate butterfly wings. Sarah, humming a gentle tune, kneaded dough for her celebrated apple pie, its comforting fragrance permeating the house. Tom, setting out plates and cutlery, experienced a profound sense of tranquility. That dragon needs more shimmer, Lily announced, pointing at Billy's artwork with a mischievous grin. Shimmer it receives, Billy responded, grabbing a selection of glitter pens. He winked at Tom. Lily's officially the creative director. The pie, burnished gold and richly scented, emerged from the oven as twilight began to descend. They gathered around the table, an unlikely family bound by something stronger than shared DNA. Tom served generous slices, the crust yielding with tender flakiness under his spoon. Sarah shared a comical anecdote about a mishap at the bakery where she'd recently started working part-time, her voice growing in confidence and resonance. Lily regaled them with tales of her park escapades, exaggerating the squirrel's gravity-defying stunts with dramatic flair. Billy, emboldened by the easy camaraderie, offered a joke he'd learned at school, even managing the punchline without a single stammer. As Tom watched, truly observed, a realization bloomed within him. It wasn't simply about providing aid to Sarah and Lily. It was something far deeper. They had brought a vital spark into his life, and Billy's, something that had been conspicuously absent for far too long. Uninhibited laughter, genuine affection, an undeniable sense of belonging. He glanced at Sarah, her eyes creasing with happiness as she smiled at Lily. He saw Billy, his cheeks flushed with pride as he displayed his dragon creation. This was no temporary arrangement, no mere act of charity. This was kinship, a family forged in resilience and love. And for the first time in what felt like an eternity, Tom felt utterly, completely at peace.